from teaching paradigm to learning paradigm, which means from transferring information to creating knowledge. I'm sorry, I'm staying very near the road, so you might get this vehicle sound a little bit once in a while. So I have had a first-hand experience. Let me tell you my experience of this. After I studied, joined design, NID, National Institute of Design, to learn design, first time I encountered what is called as a learning paradigm. In learning paradigm, there is no one teaching. Everybody is learning, no compulsion. Everybody does it because they want to do it. No attendance, no judgments, no comparisons, no marks. It's a learning environment where even the so-called teacher is involved in learning what they are interested in. Now, but most of our exposure has been to teaching environment, which actually tragically today starts from home itself. Parents are busy teaching. They no longer know how to love children. They don't know how to trust life. So it's a very different paradigm, that we begin the childhood itself. So teaching from home. Then, of course, schools have been a total tragic situation of teaching only. And throughout engineering. So my experience, because my parents were teachers, right from home, it was only a teaching environment. So this is my first-hand experience. So I would like to share some paradoxes of modernity, modern education. So the story till now has been that linguistic data has been transferred on to people with different tags. Something is called physics, economics, biology, mathematics. It's all in language form, decontextualized. You have never seen anything. So there is input that is happening, and the measurement of output is done. And then, of course, they are graded, into people who can go into IITs and ITs and different places. So this is a system that we have been following. And this system has been developed by asking the single question: how to teach children. So this is one paradigm. Now, there's a twist in the story now with artificial intelligence coming in, that the plan is now to get the help of artificial intelligence, different type of mechanisms, to put in digital data into our head. So the teacher is assisted by, in fact, it's the other way around. Teacher is going to assist the AI actually. Teacher has always been an assistant only. Top-down approach. And what will happen is a total alienation from real life. Because the child hardly ever, today, actually, I've been looking into some of the toys that are there in the Western countries. It's amazing that children never get to see life. They only get to see different kinds of mechanisms, and that is their exposure. So what happens is that, of course, it is the how to teach paradigm only, and far more alienated from life, because our exposure to life, biological things, processes, is slowly being, taken away. So the story of artificial intelligence is that initially it was called machine learning, and teaching machines what to do. So exactly the way we do with children. And of course, they have reached the height of, they could defeat even Gary Kasparov, the chess champion. And then, of course, with the, then of course, they decided that they must have machines that can think on their own, meaning create knowledge on their own. So this is the development that is happening in the artificial intelligence. And the paradox is that this artificial intelligence is being developed by learning how children learn. And the same thing is now being used to, to really dumb down children. So, I have been doing little research on this, and I found that the amount of money that is spent on trying to understand how children today, it's happened all of a sudden. They never was interested in understanding how children learn. The only question they had was how to teach children. So this is what I found very interesting about the modern mind, which is compartmentalized, because when they are in one compartment, they will think of something. And when the same person shift into another compartment, they delete that and have a new thought. Because if someone who has truly understood children are intelligent, they learn on their own, and they learn before even language comes in. They can't then turn around and say that we need to teach children. So the same scientist who is making the similar both statements actually. So this is the kind of huge amount of money, huge amount of effort to understand how children learn. only to develop intelligent machines. So you can just go through, let me just share the sound so you get, a short video that I will share with you. If there is a problem with sound, just let me know.
One can look at the story of computer science and think we have at least three ages. One is the age of programmers. In the age of programmers, you have to pay very smart people quite a lot of money to make some system behave in an intelligent way. We are now in the age of labelers, in which you pay a lot of people not much money in order to label data. And both of them, especially this one is n going to infinity, number of labeled data going to infinity. But of course, children don't have big data. We really would like to be able to show one car and one plane to a child, like we do for a child, and then they're able immediately to generalize very well. So our ideal is n going to 1, and to have computers that learn like children from experience.
So now our choice is whether should we learn from AI how to teach, or whether we should learn from children how to learn. One thing must be very clearly understood, that we, the educated people, do not know how to learn, because all our training right from childhood is to analyze somebody's information. I don't think we even understand what is the process called learning, and of course what constitutes knowledge. Now let's do one more audit of education. What it has done is its destruction of total other knowledge systems. It has also destroyed the ability to create knowledge, because that ability is biologically grounded and every living being is capable of creating knowledge. Now, another interesting thing is that only 10% of the so-called educated people are even today involved in producing knowledge, and that too for commercial purposes, funded by corporates. There is no independent learning about, for example, if you take the situation today of destruction of environment, the whole destruction that we are doing, where is the effort that is being made to understand how we have alienated ourselves and started this destruction? And of course, total absence of existential sustainable knowledge for the well-being of life. So this is what has happened: total alienation, destruction of sensitivity. And another very important thing is the subtlety that is totally missed out in the modern context, actually. So the other biggest paradox I find is that we call this the scientific times, but our life, if you look at, we are leading most unscientific life, with the existential loss of existential knowledge of how to even parent. Now, this is the where we have reached, that we don't even know how to look after our children. So the biggest crime against children is that we are treating them as idiots. And through teaching, by simplifying ABCD, miniaturizing the real world through toys, distorting through cartoons and the silly stories. Now everybody is wanting to talk to children, and we are belittling children by this process. Whereas children are naturally equipped to learn the real world as it is, which means their content always remains the same. It's the real world they are trying to understand, but they are equipped by nature to simplify it on their own and then understand the complexity. So their content never changes. Unlike in our school system, every year every day there is a change of content. No, their content don't change. Their content is what they are experiencing every day, but they are fine-tuning and understanding the complexity of that, and that's actually the process that actually children use. So clearly there are two paradigms. One is how to teach children, which of course starts with the deficit syndrome. Children doesn't know anything. And the second paradigm is how children learn. It starts with the completeness syndrome, meaning children are perfectly fine. What they need is a space for them to awaken to their completeness. And the issue that we must understand is that the moment we put a question, that question will dictate the answer. So our question, how to teach children, led us to inquire what to teach, when to teach, how much to teach, how to test, how often. All these questions that today we have is based on one question, that how do we teach children? Shift the question, ask how children learn. All this paradigm will break, and then and your role itself will change, because otherwise you're ready with your ready-made knowledge. You know everything. So your job is only to transfer that. The moment you shift this question, you become completely blank. You don't know, which means you then turn to be a true learner. Your observation starts. You ask question, what do they learn? How do they learn? How do they learn language? What is the role of language? Everything that we have taken for granted would change. And so what is this, so why are we educated not able to understand children? This is one question, that because our pretense is that we have understood everything. This is the tragedy of, this is the, the whole paradox of all this, the situation that we think we have understood, and the fact is that we have not understood anything. This is the real issue that we need to handle. So we see them as needing help, assistance, and we are seeing them through our categories. We have created category like learning time, playtime, art, work, and everything has its own hierarchy, its own materials. This is all a modern construct. Actually, children don't fall into any of these categories. And other, important thing that we have missed out is we are giving more and more product. We have become product oriented, and frankly, we are absent all the time because we are always in the mind. So a distinguishing factor that I have experienced is that literates are taught the word, whereas illiterates learn the world. This is a crucial difference that we must understand. And children are actually born into the illiterate framework. So which means that if you don't interfere, they will use what is naturally endowed by life. So modern mindset is linear, fragmented, compartmentalized, alienated. And the children and literates have a simultaneous way of knowing that is integrated and it is whole. Now, we have understood many of this. And so we say we want holistic thing and integrated thing, all the terms, right terms we are using, but we do not have the capacity to shift from one paradigm to another paradigm, precisely because this is not a matter of thought. By thinking from tomorrow I will become holistic is not going to happen, because you are structurally linear, fragmented, and compartmentalized. So one very important thing that if you need to understand children is what, and the true nature of learning is what I call as paradigm of the unknown, and compare it with paradigm of the known. We belong to the paradigm of the known because we have ready-made knowledge, and naturally it will take us into the realm of known because we know everything. We only need to, and that is through analysis, second-hand knowledge stored very well, and we need to only apply it. Now, you shift into the paradigm of unknown. It changes completely because it demands observation, interest, involvement. It's a recurring process. Naturally, it will build in attention, patience, resilience, and playfulness, discovery, innovation. So you see every characteristics of a true learner it actually belongs to the realm of unknown. And what happens is that your abilities, qualities, attitude, aptitude, morality, beingness, and even, and of course, and that makes you into a nature-centric person. All this is based on whether we begin with the unknown or we begin with the known. Known meaning, of course, it is certainty, inability, and of course, we are very overconfident people. No, that's come from our false notion that we know everything. So arrogant, superiority complex. Now, the superiority complex is not something that you're aware of. It is an inbuilt system. The fact that you think you're educated without your wanting, you feel superior. And our behavior towards people whom we think are inferior is always from a hierarchical position. You meet an illiterate person, immediately you begin to give sermons. To children, this is what we do. So this is clearly very important thing to understand. Unknown, what does it do? Unknown shape your value system based on humility and wonder. And it also shapes your cognitive system based on senses, body, and experience. And no teaching also shapes your value system based on openness, collaboration, cooperation, and your cognitive system based on playful exploration, discovery, intelligence, open-ended processing. And the third, this is the most important thing, that it will happen in autonomy. This is an extremely important thing. And of course, the final thing, this is the most important thing, which is that never having felt that they have failed or made a mistake. Now, this is what education does to each one of us. Even from a first standard, you are certified that you're won or lost. In the natural learning process, nobody certifies whether won or lost. That system doesn't exist at all in the true nature of learning. So this is actually the idea that you've failed, you're won, you're passed. All these are artificially injected notions in the head. So how children learn? Learning is natural. It's curiosity is life given. Learning means to create knowledge. Learning means to shape oneself. The context is the content, meaning where you live. What is your context is your content. And language is used for articulation and not for cognition. So children are biologically equipped to create knowledge and not to analyze information, which also means that it is biologically bound, and we use biological tools, qualities, aptitudes to understand this process. So you see this, oh my God, by mistake, I went into the last slide. This is, yes, okay. So why dictate the purpose? Why do we learn? What is the content and how is the process? So why children learn? It's not children's any egoistic idea. Life is learning. Learning, really living is about learning only. There's nothing else that every living being is doing. And it is to sustain life. And if you look around, you will find that the only activity that the life is attempting to do is to sustain life. And it's only the modern human beings who have stepped out of this process, actually, because they have completely mistaken the idea that why are we learning, So these are all life given, as I told earlier. And so one very important thing that must be understood about the human being is that even though we have a huge potential, and we also claim to be most intelligent. Well, I don't make these kind of comparisons at all because I don't think it can be compared at all. But there is one important thing that we need to understand, that in the earlier stages of, during childhood, we are extremely helpless, totally vulnerable, and totally dependent on the external condition. And even our ability to walk should not be taken for granted. It should be, it's only a potential and it has to be drawn out. Now, the case of feral children clearly point out this fact that the first child that you see was looked after by dogs. So her whole behavior was dog-like. The second one was looked after by monkey. And the third one, if you see the way the hand is kept, he was living with hens. So he became hen-like. He was eating with lips as if it was a beak. So the one important thing is that children absorb, observe, absorb, and imbibe. They become that. So that has to be very, very clearly understood. So the context is extremely important. We become what we experience. So this is a very interesting experiment that took place in 1930s. They adopted a baby chimp for their child, but they had to remove the chimp soon because the child was behaving like the chimp. So how children learn? How do they develop their qualities and the processes? So senses are the most important tool that we have. It is through senses that we build our cognitive foundation. Senses give, because initially it's only through senses that even if the mother says whatever, the child only hears the sound. The child doesn't hear the meaning at all. So it is through sensorial inputs that the initial foundation has been built. Is being built. So observation of all senses. Now you can see that the child is constantly observing. Other very important thing that must be understood is what is called as comparison. So please look at the, what the child in the front is doing, how he is comparing the feet. So taking chance, this is another very, very important, activity that children do. Guesswork, basically, but that is what it means. Then, of course, repetition, totally repeating. So I need to give you some redefinitions before we proceed, because we have appropriated each and every word to fit into our framework. Learning in the natural context is, learning means to creating knowledge, not analyzing somebody's information. And learning the real world, mind you. Learning also means shaping oneself. So learning is a two-way process. What you learn in turn shapes you. And creativity, because this has been completely hijacked by different kinds of professions called creative professions. Creativity is the root of learning, because creativity is the response to the unknown. It's a response necessitated by the condition of unknown. So every living being in that sense has the potential for a creative activity. Curiosity is again life given. Everything in life is curious. You can see the intent in which I don't know what that is observing. Look, so questioning, again, questioning is not a, see, the shift that we need to make is from our linguistic understanding of things into experiential understanding of things. So questioning for a small child has nothing to do with using language. It is actually, the question and answer is held within the realm of experience itself. And play, a totally mistaken idea, because today now everyone is talking about playfulness without understanding anything about that. So look at this. The child was eating a coconut piece, took a bite, and immediately remembered the Nandi bull. So he first comparison was with the horn, and the second comparison immediately he changed it to the half moon. So look at the way the child immediately remembered, recollected similar things, yet in a very, very different, thing altogether. So this is the speciality of children, to find certain similarities, even though they are fundamentally very different things, So, and this is precisely the principle by which children develop toys. So toys are even more dangerous than schools and teaching. So play is actually the reenactment of experience. First of all, children experience the world playfully, and then they reenact the experience. This is what we think is play. Of course, various names are given. Toy is the object that is used as props in the reenactment of experience. So this child, that wooden thing is a child for some time. It became a bus. It became something else. It is used for sitting. So many different purposes, the same object. So this is the flexibility that the child minds have. So ready-made toys are more dangerous. Toy is actually a process, an object in the process of, experience. So body itself is used as a toy. I'm sure you must have observed how children use their palm as mobile phone. And in case anybody is able to take a photograph of this, please send it to me. A child using the palm as mobile phone. Or the body is used in many, many different ways. I'm sure you must have all done body as a vehicle that you go around doing, going around, So body itself become a toy. Nature as toy. Any object that nature gets. So it's actually exploring the world and understanding the world. It happens simultaneously. Any object as toy. Now this stick is a toy. This is his vehicle. A chappal. So children doesn't have any distinction between toy and non-toy. This has to be very clearly understood, that because this is the first damage that you do to children, especially the rattle that you give. People think that unless rattle is given, children's senses don't function. It's a tragedy of modern minds, actually. Oh, imagination, another totally misunderstood idea. Because see, what we educated people have is what is called as imaginary imagination, because we read and make some guesses and create images. For a child, imagination comes from concrete experience. They imagine the stone to be their child. This is imagination. A simple two combs are put together and his aeroplane is ready. This is imagination. So there is a real image, real thing about which imagination is done. You know, in real concrete terms, this is imagination. We only know all these things that we talk about, whether it is reflection, imagination, abstraction. Abstraction, I don't think even people know what that actually means. Anyway, other things are all in the realm of language. So look at this: process orientation, creation of knowledge, presence all the time, and they're dealing with quality. Whereas us, we are totally in the product orientation. Product orientation means we are dealing with knowledge as a product. We are never in the process of creating knowledge. So naturally, we are believers of knowledge, even though we may call ourselves scientists, scientific and all that. Basically, what we are doing is believing in science. This is also known as scientism. Belief in science is called scientism, and most educated are basically a new religion called scientism. And we are, of course, in absence, and we are dealing with quantity all the time. That's why we want to quantify everything all the time. And natural pedagogy. Now, this is very important for new parents to understand what is called natural pedagogy, because everybody is interested in teaching a child. Teaching without teaching. I call this teaching without teaching. Now, look at this interesting video. What is that grandfather doing? He is doing things that he wants to do, not with an intention of teaching. Even the very intention of teaching is dangerous for a child. You lead your authentic lives. You do what you need to do. Children will pick up. Look at the child. The child is observing and learning. That old man is not once worried whether the child will learn or not. So this is basically the principle of learning. Child is a learner. In nature, there is only learning. Teaching happens very rarely, once in a while, if at all necessary. Usually this doesn't happen. So what children learn? Now, this is another extremely important thing. First, as I told you, the real world is the content and the complex world is the content. But so they experience the objects, processes. Process means, household, what you do at home, and process of life, social process. All this is the content of child's life. Of course, as they grow older and older. So this is the first lesson a child learns: to be a mother, to take care. And this first lessons are what we are now taking away from children. Children actually should be grounded in autonomy, in respecting life, in love, in care, not in the silly idea of knowledge. See, one thing you must understand is that learning is choiceless. Whatever the child learns is the knowledge for the child. And the first lesson is how to live, how to love, how to take care, how to respect. So, oh, sorry, this is a movie which I need to show you. Oh, I have to read. Yeah.
Student teacher.
नहीं अभी तक थैंक यू टीचर बोला है नहीं ना
Thank you, teacher.
नहीं फिंगर आने देखो ना मैंने अभी अभी तो लगाए फिंगर आने
Thank you, teacher.
हेलो
ಇದು ಅದು ಹುಚ್ಚ teacher ಸದಾ ಫೋನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ.
अरे टीचर के फोन है entendeu uma frente entendeu Deus Roberto entendeu Jurandir.
So this is very interesting that once children get exposed to the idea of teaching, they imbibe how to be a teacher. And what is interesting is that they come wherever possible, they start reenacting and absorbing and imbibing and becoming a teacher. So it doesn't matter whether they have, what kind of children they, students they have. So in this case, she has put 2 of her cats. And we also had noticed once that this child was actually teaching the dots that are in front. Look at the arrangement, a classroom-like arrangement that she saw, and immediately converted that into her classroom. So this is so interesting that, of course, it's a mind-blowing idea that how children are able to immediately make use of a situation, but also think that what has she learned from that. Now look at this. Look at the body language of that child. No, so this is actually what we learn. So you must understand that our body, our senses, learn, imbibe everything in experience. So what classroom, school does is to create a fragmented person in which the mind is involved in the language that the teacher is telling, where the body is experiencing, meaning emotion, senses, all that experiencing the teacher. So what is she picked up? She's picked up the behavioral aspects of the teacher, the authority, the teaching mind. So naturally what children learn is various attributes of phenomena, which means the form, function, process, material, structure, relationship, context. So what actually this means is that, now let me just show you this mouse. This as a form, it looks like something. You can, of course, it's like a rat, a mouse. It looks like something, which means it is a form, it is a function. You do something with that. There's a process by which it's made. There are materials. It has achieved structural stability, and it is in relationship with other things. If you look at any activity the children are doing spontaneously, you will find that this is what children are doing, whether they are trying to understand material things, social things, or natural things. Everything you will be able to understand. They're trying to understand what life is all about. This is the only thing that the child is wanting to understand. So form mean, size, color, other attributes. How does it feel? Sensation, texture, temperature. How does it behave? What is the property, softness, and things like that. So form. Now this, I'm sure most of you in your childhood must have kept the book like this, kept it like this, and either called it a tent or a house or something like that. Other thing you must have done is you must have placed a bedsheet over a table and called it a house. Now, so these children are near flats, so the complexity of their building has gone up. Now this is even more complex. So this is a fantastic activity I had shot. This is the the bazaar, the market, vegetable market. And what was interesting was that most of the things they have used were looking very similar in shape of in size, in form to the object. But there was one object I found very interesting. It was they used flour, in which case they were actually comparing the color in that case, the bengan, the eggplant, what they did. Now, this is so interesting that they got together hibiscus as the chilies. So wherever possible, they find the accurate similarity. Otherwise, they simply adjust. So function is that this is what I was telling, that we must have all done this, put a bedsheet over a table. And so in this case, our preoccupation is with the contained space, because that is the function of the house, to offer a contained space. So children recreate contained space, and that becomes their point of exploration. And of course, this is something that I'm sure all of you must have done. Process is process of making. In this case, your focus is how do you build something. And of course, structure is the final. And you must have seen that how many times children create and recreate and recreate. Finally, it reaches a stable thing, which means that they are concerned about structural stability. And property means what is the material, what material offers. I'm sure you must have observed children sitting on a sofa and start bouncing. Why is that every child doing this? So this is in the railway station. You have this very smooth surface on which the child is constantly sliding. So, natural exploration of senses. And of course, you must understand that this is not done in a very linear and structured way. There is always a combination of things. So I found this very interesting, this particular thing in which he has achieved all the four, material is explored, the structure is explored, process is done, and of course the function is explored, So one important principle is that they experience the whole, explore the parts, and natural synthesis will happen. Now, this is an area that needs far more work. I have only begun to look at that. So in this, I feel that, take a look at this. See whether the child is creating knowledge. I'm sure she is not taught by her parents how to do this. And look at this as an integrated process in which child is learning to be careful, creating knowledge, being creative, being flexible, like a scientist trying out. Judgments are being done. Get on fast. I have to move. So there he is. So basically, we need to understand that why, what, how are the fundamental questions around which knowledge gets created. Where and when are the context. And I also feel that there is something called inherent attentions within us, because our first engagement is always in response to the question, what is happening? Because this question, what is happening, is what actually immediately triggers the senses to, be alert. It begins to hear the sound, immediately the, observation happens. And the first, and if you pay more and more attention to what is happening, slowly the how gets opened up. Why is more hidden? Why requires far more involvement. And of course, in every of our engagement, all the three are integrally present, with maybe a certain amount of priority to certain things. And of course, this is the first level of knowledge. Now, the second level of knowledge is when you become more interested in staying with any of these questions. For example, let's take language, for example. I'm sure for most people, grammar must have been the most boring subject, at least in the initial stages. One subject that was terrible, probably even more than mathematics. So, using this principle, what really happens actually? First thing, one thing that you must remember is that children in Bangalore slums learn 4 languages by the time they reach 4 years, with nobody teaching at all. And different kinds of languages: Tamil, Telugu, Kannada, Hindi, 4 languages they learn. So how does that happen? And suppose you want to understand grammar, which of these questions should come to act? It's the same principle that you saw, that when the child was looking at 2 feet and making the comparisons, finding the similarity and finding the difference. Exactly, this is the rule that is being used at every level of knowledge creation. Now, if you want to understand how grammar is, the only thing you need to do is to begin to pay attention to how language is being spoken. And of course, this is not something that everybody should do it. It's only if you're interested. So biology of learning is experience is the cognitive source. Understanding takes place in experience. Senses are the input device. Senses awaken the inner world as it engages with the outer world. So there is naturally, as I told you, two-way process. We are nature and all the rules of nature are applicable to us. Understanding happens in self-organization where neither reasoning nor language has any role to play. This is a very crucial thing to understand because our understanding of knowledge and understanding happens in the realm of language using reasoning. So now let me just take language. See how children learn language. This is an extremely important thing to understand. First of all, children learn language at a much later date. First experience is purely sensorial. And within the sensorial experience, they begin to differentiate different things. This is sweet, this is bitter, this is this, without the language at all. It's through comparison. When they eat mango, banana, apple, and all the thing, there is a similar taste that tells them that this belongs to one type of category. And as you saw earlier, metaphor is the most important thing that is used, that comes to play at every act of learning. So language is the name that we give to our experience. Experience is verb and language is noun. So let me just show you some interesting thing. So this is I want to show you an example of metaphor. The same thing, studying form. She had seen me working on laptop. There was a greeting card, immediately opened it and said, now she started using this. This is even more interesting. This, these two plugs, she told this is father and mother. And next moment she lay down and said that they are sleeping now. So, so how actually children learn is adults provide the word. Children hear the sound. Meaning gets created in experience. Now, what is different between the educated people doing is that they don't allow the children to create meaning. Actually, they provide the meaning itself. That is the difference. The moment you teach, you are engaged in giving meaning. If you normally speak to a child, not to a child, even in your own conversation with other people, if you are very normal, children will learn each and every word from the context and they are able to connect the word and the word together. So this is a interesting example of how categories and this is get created. This child was 3-year-old, saw this peacock flying. Immediately she told this is a crow, because her first category of all flying ones are crows, because the first thing that the child saw was a crow. So everything that is flying she began to call them kaka. And interestingly, this peacock got down and started walking. Immediately she called the same peacock dog. That's very interesting, because for her all the walking ones are kutta. So this is the way children keep on creating categories, initially at a very small scale, and then slowly build on the category using all kinds of parameters, phenomena, attributes. So form is a very important thing. So initially the child used to call cats Mimi and dogs Cuckoo, and on seeing tiger, she called them Bada Mimi. And interesting was that the lion had two names, because the face was like a cat and the body was like a dog. So the child would shift between these two. And as you can see, how slowly the categories gets built up, using sound, form, color, texture, various attributes. And of course, in terms of fruits and other food and all that, it will be taste, smell, all those kind of things. So categories are abstracted from experiences, and they are arising from the sensory response of the body. And this process goes on before the child learns language, and language is only a convenient tool for identification and communication. You see that you can give mango any name you want, amchi, manga, menga, konga, kanga, you call anything. The taste is going to be the same. It's only the name that differs. So creation of language is through integration of the word and the word. This is a very crucial thing to understand, that the word and the world, the child integrates if you don't interfere. So every activity a child does is cognitive activity. So initial experiences are playful, like when they eat food, you will see any activity the child does is playful. Then that leads to recreating experiences in the real world, which is called as play and toys. And the third is actually recreating experience in two-dimensional space drawing. So now drawing is a very, very important thing to understand, because you see the two-dimensional space that is being provided today is very new in our history of humankind. It is only after the printing press came in that two-dimensional space became more commonly available to all the people. So drawing, in none of the villages, you will not find any non-literate people engaged in drawing. Drawing is done only by communities who are involved in drawing, for like Chitrakars. So Chitrakar community, or in the Madhubani context, the children would be drawing. That is because the parents are drawing. But in none of the other communities, for example, you take potters, you will not find a potter child sitting and drawing anything. So drawing itself as an act which is two-dimensional in nature is something that is new, and it has to be understood how children adapt to this. So drawing, so what I would like to say is that we have done a fantastic study of children's drawing. From thousands of drawing, we have studied what is the nature of drawing. And we found that drawing it actually resembles the developmental stages in every other things in what we do, like talking, walking, or any kind of stability, bodily stability. So drawing is basically an adaptive activity that the child does to understand three-dimensional world in terms of two-dimensional space, provided you don't interfere with any kind of things. Even the word drawing itself will cause problem. So crawling stage of drawing, scribbling that you do, then closer observation leads to more and more complex. I will not go into the detail of this, just give you just a glimpse of these things, So how the child reaches three dimension is interesting. From one line drawing to slowly, as the child grows. So this is what I'm telling, the content is the same. The child reduces it, simplifies it. And then of course it has reached the three-dimensional aspect. And the same thing with how children start speaking one word, one sound, and then how that leads to the whole story building. Exactly like that you will find in the drawing thing also. Complexity increases. This imagination is another thing. Imagination here. This person is pregnant and the child is inside the stomach of that, So this is another level of imagination in which the child, there are three generations together. Exploration of form, exploring process. You see the same kind of processes that you see in recreating play is being applied even in drawing. It's just that we have never paid attention to any of these things to understand why children do all kinds of activities. So my definition is that drawing is a process invented by children, adapted by children to make sense of the three-dimensional world in terms of two-dimensional space. It is not art. So you see, curiosity is life-given. It leads to observation, leads to exploration, leads to interest, attention, patience. Now, this is an ongoing circle where experience is the basis, recurring, refining, renewing. So let me also quickly talk to you about art. Urge for order is innate. So art again is a modern construct, completely misunderstood what is the role of beauty in life. Now, please take a look at the child that is, the girl that is sitting there. See what she is doing. You saw? Oh, sorry. Sorry. I think this person, Janani, please close your mic, please. The little disturbance in what I was talking about. Sorry for that. Yeah. So please look at this once again. The girl. So where does this innate urge comes in? And you can also saw that, that the other child also took part in it and she was not instructing. So there is an innate urge for order in a certain kind of easiness in life. And if you, so look at composition, for example, when you say something is composed, what does it actually mean? It actually means that it demands the least cognitive effort. That's what it means. That there is easiness in the eye because of something that is composed. So it's actually a very, very functional thing. So again, look at this, achieving economy in action. This is what rhythm and body, it's not for doing dance at all. Primary thing is to retain the rhythm in the body. You can see at every stage, this rhythm, this beauty is maintained. And automatically, there is no intention to create beauty at all. This is to be understood. There is no intention. This is how life is. So art practiced by modernity is a construct of the mind. The notion of self-expression is just 100-year-old. So this self-expression is the latest nonsense that is going around everywhere, as if everybody is interested in knowing your self-expression. You see, if you look at any of the masters, they have always engaged in selfless expression. It was the universe that was, through them, it was coming out. So please don't go around and promoting this nonsense. So this is something that you go into any rural travel area, this is something you see with no intention to create beauty. It's so natural for people to, do things beautifully. That is an integral being. A fragmented being is, there is intention that is all separated. You want to do beauty. So first you do something unbeautiful and then you create beauty. So this you find in every activity, not only in cooking, whatever they do. So aesthetics is one of the most misunderstood aspect of modernity because it's understood from a very psychological concept. It's basically rooted in our biology. Beauty is one of the fundamental aspects of life, which ensures organic organization of life. It helps in external organization, internal organization. And beauty is that which enables us to be in communion with nature. So making some conclusions that we have totally misunderstood children play, toy, knowledge creation as a process, content of knowledge, role of experience, and role of language. Basically, it is about from conditioning, we must go into awakening. So how do we create conditions, physical conditions? Because in modernity, there is no physical condition that enables awakening. It's only for conditioning. So no miniaturized and distorted versions, mobile phones, screens, all kinds of screens, including books, are dangerous for children. They need to see the real world. See, the health, like if you don't eat good food, you don't have physical health. If you don't have good inputs, sensorial inputs, you don't have good psychological health. It's a very simple thing. So what should be the input of the child must see? Child must see life as it is happening around, the beautiful life that is happening around. This should be the input, not the miniaturized versions and all the silly toys, plastic things that and the electronic thing that is happening all around us, even more dangerous actually. And everything should be accessible. Make your kitchen on the ground. Start using ground as the least furniture would be of great help. And get into processes. Stop using ready-made stuff. Cooking, get everything there and start cooking now. Even make sambar podi, don't buy it. So kitchen going up is one of the major factors, and allow children to engage in every activity. Don't interfere with them. So this is a very, very interesting video that Anjana had shared from one of the Marathi groups, in which by mistake, the atta, the flour fell down from the mother's hand, and then the child began to start using it, just start cleaning it. But what is very interesting about this is that she had attended our sessions, so she allowed this to happen. So this is what the modern parents are having problem with. They are unnecessarily concerned about cleanliness, which they must not worry at all about. Arrangement of the house, as if they are, somebody is going to visit them and give them mark. So the mother became extremely, allowing and understanding that the child needs that autonomy. There is no nonsense that the child does. Creating psychological conditions means stop saying no to the child. Don't. Then never talk about shyness. No comparisons. All this language use is detrimental to, because everything the child is absorbing. When you say don't, the child is immediately, but the child gets angry for don't, because see, curtailing of freedom is the most detrimental thing, and the thing that we don't like at all. This is to be clearly understood. And of course, this is what it is actually. There is an inherent thing that within the tiny banyan seed is its potential to bloom to its immensity. There is no input that it requires to bloom to its full potential. Only existential conditions of freedom, trust, and unconditional love. This is the only thing that you need to give children, because nothing else actually you can give. This is a pretense. You can only damage what is given by life. That's only what you can do actually. And we are complete at every stage. This is to be again understood. I'm bringing it back again. So from teaching environment, we need to move into learning environment. And one of the things that we must understand is that unless we become inquirers, learners, our child will never be a learner, because they will imbibe our inability to learn from us. So the whole purpose of our foundation, which is existential knowledge foundation, has been to collaborate, come together, and reinitiate inquiry in society, so that children have a different space altogether. And of course, now please don't get angry with me. I have to tell you one very, very difficult thing. Screens, especially books, because these people don't understand at all. Toys, play date. You see, one very important thing is that if you can keep away from the Western knowledge system, that will be really helpful, because if you look at all these terminologies, all this is coming from English educated Westernized Indians. Play date, it's a new thing. Please stop all this nonsense. Children don't need all that kind of stuff. Art, of course, it's again coming from their reading of too many books. Stories, another tragedy. Montessori method, that's a new latest thing that is happening. No, all methods are dangerous for children, because children are themselves a natural method. If you interfere with that, it'll create damage to the system. And of course, don't get angry for this. Don't get angry. Educated adults and teachers, keep children away from them. Okay, now I come to my final thing. So we are deeply trying to understand all these things based on why children play, what is drawing, what is language, what is art. And we are trying to create small modules for us to learn together. So please join in, please support us in what we are doing. You must understand that there is hardly anybody that is trying to understand how children learn for the purpose of recreating environment for children, a better life for children. So please join in our effort. Join us in taking this forward in every way. Of course, we also need financial support for taking this forward, because we also are planning to put up an interesting website where people can come together and have a collation of our experiences. So this is our foundation's name. You can check out more about what we do there, our courses and everything else. So thank you very much. So we can spend some time if you have any, but some silence is also good. 2 minutes silence would be good. And then slowly you can